Hey there, it's Renessa Bully Lane, and welcome to another conversation on creating your perfect work. If you follow me, then you know that I am all about equipping you to discover, design, and get highly paid doing work you love, whether that means radically changing careers, launching a business, or bringing a big idea to life. And so we're in the middle of a 7-day series on overcoming overwhelm, overcoming busyness, and creating more time, space, and focus to get highly paid doing work that you love. And so today's topic is going to challenge your beliefs about your time, about your obligations, about your worth. And by worth, I mean the value that you place on the contributions that you make personally and professionally. And so this conversation is critical. And it's critical because we always make decisions that align with what we believe, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. And for high achieving women, we can often appear very confident, right, on the outside, and then not recognize the places where we have insecurities around our value. And so when we undervalue and under-recognize kind of who we are and what we're doing in the workplace and our families and our communities, then we can put ourselves and we can put our schedules at the mercy of other people's priorities, at the mercy of other people's egos. And that will wreak havoc on the time, space, and focus that we dedicate to really creating the work that we know that we were born to do. And so we're going to fix that today, though. We are going to fix that today. So this amazing woman who is sharing the screen with me is none other than Kristen Zavo, career coach and best-selling author of the book Job Joy, Your Guide to Success, Meaning, and Happiness in Your Career. And so just even the title of the book was like, I got to talk to Kristen, because the title, as soon as I saw Job Joy, I was like, oh, Job Joy, yay. But Kristen is on a mission to help unfulfilled high achievers to land jobs, to launch businesses, and to build careers and lives that they absolutely love on their own terms. And her work has been featured in places like Wall Street Journal, in Forbes, in Business Insider, and countless other publications. So that's her professional street cred. Right. But let me tell you why the woman is bad. And not bad meaning bad, but bad meaning good. So for those of you not familiar with the term bad, this is a good thing. So Kristen has a fire in her belly about women and the value of their time, both at home and in the workplace. And I could think of nobody better to help you take greater ownership of the time, space, and focus that you need to get highly paid doing work that you love. But beyond that, I just like her. I just like her. Sometimes you meet people and you're like, oh, I feel you. And so I feel her. I feel her passion. I feel her commitment. I feel her authenticity. And when you can meet folks who give you space to be real and to be honest and to be authentically who you are, that's a real gem and that's a real gift. And I really believe that Kristen is a gift to the marketplace just for that alone, accomplishments aside. And so with that, I just want to welcome you to the show. I'm excited to have you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing your expertise with all of us.
Renessa, thank you so much for having me and for that beautiful introduction. And all the feelings are mutual. I love getting to know you and our conversations, and we definitely have a connection. So
yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So let's just dive on in. So Kristen, you are typically pretty big on accountability. Mm-hmm. Like anyone that's working with you, if y'all work with her, you better show up. Yeah. But I've heard you say that many women struggle with time management, and it's really not their fault. And so that kind of gives people an out. But I'd love for you to explain, why do you believe that to be the case? Because generally, particularly as high achieving women, we tend to want to take responsibility for how we show up in the marketplace, where we fail, where, whatever. But in this case, you're giving people a pretty big out, and I'm really curious to hear about why.
Yes, and I wouldn't consider it an out, but I would consider it a different path to being able to make time for the things that you want. If you're my client, I assume if you're in the audience watching this, even someone who would take the time, right, to watch a series on this, right, you've practiced the tools, you've got the habits, you've got the patterns, right, you've tried to push through, right, you've got the planners online, offline, on the wall, right, and if you have tried all the things, right, in earnest, including slapping on some positive mantras, and they're not working, or if they're specifically not working for your goals and the things you want to spend time on, then it's likely that there's something else going on underneath. And so it's not about not taking responsibility. It's actually the opposite, taking responsibility to take the time to really dive deep and understand what are the hidden unconscious motivations behind you never being able to make time for yourself, but somehow you get to everyone else's demands, right? At work, at home, with your friends, you're the first one to volunteer. Yes, I will help with that. So when we have this nuance, there's normally something else going on, and there could be, unconscious beliefs. There could be fears, right? Worthiness issues. And a few ways to look at this are the history, our society, and family. And so historically, it wasn't that long ago that women were considered property. I read pretty recently, and I don't know if you know this, why women would take the last name of their husbands.
Okay.
It was not because of romance. It was not to show the partnership. It was so if that man had a baby, he had claim on her and his offspring. That was the reason, right? And so from just historically, right, we have been seen as women as how we can support others, how we can provide for others. That has been our value. Right. And then even if we look at the workplace, which was created for men by men, right? And still it's in fairly recent history that it's normal, right? And we're obviously still not equal in that way. But it was made for men. And even as women joined, right, we think of the typical jobs, nurse, secretary, all like you think 1950s acceptable jobs for women. They were all supporting others and specifically supporting men. And the institutions and everything that was really theirs. And so we're at this place where, historically, we as women have been taught that that is our role. Our role is to support. It's not to shine. It's not to have an opinion, right? It's not to come in and do new things. So we've got that history that's just passed down, right? We're not even going to get to a topic of epigenetics. That would be really fun as well. But then we get into even society. So even society is changing, right? We have this history, but things should be different. But still, right? Female roles, the value, right, is not seen. We are not paid for so much of what we do. I remember a long time ago, probably 10 years ago, right? We've heard that study that came out that said, if we put a salary on a stay-at-home mom, right, it would be well into the six figures.
Absolutely.
Right? And that was a long time ago. Think of all the things you do, just head of household, right? And it's not just the doctor's appointments and the planning and the food prep and the cooking and the cleaning, right? But it's also holding that emotional space, right? For everyone who's there. It's not a job. It's not a 9-to-5 job, is it? You don't leave, right? And so we have been through history, through society, and then, we'll talk about family in a minute, but we've gotten these patterns that it's our job to be on and to be in service to others solely, right? And to put ourselves last. And by the way, we should do that work happily and for free.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then of course we have the next layer. We're kind of going out to in, right? In our family, what did we see, the dynamics between our parents, right? And the other female role models in our lives, right? Beliefs are definitely passed down, right? There's, if your mother, right, was a martyr, right? She did all the work. She suffered in silence. I'm guessing a lot of us, right, can remember that and relate. Maybe we feel that way, right? There is this thing in families where in order to belong, right, and this again, all unconscious, we kind of take on the beliefs and the ways of being of our family, right? I'm totally going to butcher the quote, right? But in a house of thieves, right, the person who's not stealing, right, is the traitor. Right. And so in this case, it's all unconscious, but as a way to belong to our family, we take on those beliefs, those habits, those patterns that we grew up with. Right. And it's mostly unconscious. But then we go out into the world and we wonder, why am I struggling, right, to do the things I say I want to do for myself, for my career? And yet I don't make time for that, but everybody else's things get done. Right? Women will not eat. They will stay up till all hours to hit a deadline for someone else. And yet what is the first thing to go? Our self-care, our dreams, our goals, right? And so I know we're going to talk a lot more about that, but this is sort of a high level of.
Yeah. So, I think it's when you start to talk about patterns, and we're going to get into some of those patterns in a moment, when you start to talk about patterns, a lot of times we don't know where those patterns come from. And you talk about looking at family, and obviously families look so different now than they did 40, 50, 60 years ago. And so family is not always, two-parent home. Your parents were married, until you grew up, and, for 35 years and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of women who are growing up with single, mothers, or they're growing up in matriarchal families where it's like there's so many women around and there are no men around. And there's this sense of strength, and you've got women who are being the mothers and the fathers and the this and that and the other, and so that creates a certain belief system for women even today, where they think I should be able to do all of this. Why? Because my mother and my auntie and all of the women around, my grandmother, like they all did it themselves, so I should also be able to do it myself as well. And so then you start to look at your life, and you look at the privilege of your life, and you question whether or why can't I get this together, right? And I'll just speak for myself. Oftentimes I will make this comparison because I'm a hard charging person. I'm a military kid, an only child. I'm used to just going for stuff. But there are times where I've hit these walls or these plateaus, even in business, and I'm like, why can't I? And I'm hitting the wall, the ceilings of burnout or whatever, and it's like, why can't I just push through this? Why do I need help with this? There are single mothers out there with 3 kids, and they're working 2 jobs, and so what do you mean I need 8 hours of sleep? Like, I'll have these conversations in my head around, because I'm thinking in my circumstance that's privilege. And if you're privileged to perhaps have a spouse or to have, something else, then why is it that you're running around talking about you're tired or, whatever's going on? And so we're going to talk about some of those patterns, but I think it's really important for women to understand before you get into the planners and, the schedule blocking and the tactics and the strategies that sometimes you are faithful to, and most times pretty inconsistent with. A lot of it has to do with some of these underlying constructs that you've begun to build, and they may have been built from infancy, from childhood visions that you've seen, and now you've adopted that that's the way of the world. It's not, no one told you it was, it's just the way that you interpreted what you saw, and now that becomes how you show up. And so getting support and getting help and asking for help and being vulnerable and all those things become really, really difficult. So I want you to kind of tune in and start to think about this from what's going on in my life, so that you can begin to unravel some of those core belief systems. So that, I think that leads us into the next question around patterns, belief systems, habits. Like, we all, what are you seeing with women that you've either worked with, women that you befriend? What are some of those patterns, beliefs, and habits that you've seen in confident women that begin to become impediments to them really being able to do and create and succeed in work that they love?
Yeah, there are a lot of patterns, and even like an overarching theme, and something that I think we don't talk about enough, right? Is yes, women empowerment and privilege, and we can do so many more things, right? And while it's a lot of progress, a lot of the way we got there was through survival and hustle and pushing.
Yeah.
And for high achievers, many of us have we have this belief that our worth is related to how much we do.
Yeah.
Our worth is related to how much we produce,
Mm-hmm.
right? And many times, if you find yourself overworking, overcommitting, right? Another reason you don't have time for your dreams, because you're committing to everything else and everyone else. It can be a trauma response.
Yeah.
If you grew up and the way you were rewarded was getting good grades, doing the chores, doing what, whoever said, or you watched, right, what your, like you said, what single mom had to do, right?
Yeah.
And we get the message unconsciously, right, that if we're not always doing, working, hustling, right, doing things for others, we're not going to survive. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
might sound extreme, but at a somatic level, like in our bodies, there is an
Yeah.
actual nervous system response, right? If you're the type of person who is afraid to have a quiet moment by yourself, you always have to be listening to something or doing something, or you can't just sit down, right? Multitasking all the time,
Yeah.
right? And I think this is normal for a lot of women.
Yeah.
There's something to look at. Why don't I want to slow down and be quiet? right? Why don't I want to develop a relationship with myself? What am I afraid of?
Yeah.
Right. So I just wanted to kind of frame it with that. And this is, when I say it's not your fault, right? That's what I mean. When
Mhm.
all the top down strategies, the things that start here, the tools, the mindset work, the
Yeah.
slapping the mantra on and buying a planner and the stickers, right? As though that's going to magically
Yeah.
make everything work. Your issues with time are not really about time, they're about worthiness, right?
Mhm.
And so some patterns, right? I'm last, right? Everyone else is first. And if you've had, this is most mothers, right? And so probably 90% of women, right, have seen that model, right?
Yeah.
My dreams don't matter,
Mhm.
right? Or one of my favorites is, I'll do that when.
Mhm.
I'll do that when the kids are grown. I'll do it when I lose 20 pounds. I'll do it when I hit six figures at work, right? Putting
Mhm.
off our dreams for some future event to happen, right?
Mhm.
That may or may not happen. The fact is, we're living our life now,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Not in a year, not in 5 years, not in 10 years. And so
Yeah.
I know I kind of covered them fast, but these are kind of the ideas, the thoughts, the beliefs, the patterns that I see holding really successful women back in connecting with their own dreams. Because you could be really successful, right? And have all the things, but if you're not fulfilled, it could be part of this. This could be part of the reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to park on this point because I think it's really critical because oftentimes we don't recognize why we do what we do, or we don't recognize why we do what we do, and even our justification for why we do what we do can seem so valid
And
on the
noble.
outside and noble, right? But it is truly motivated and driven by fear, by judgment, by ego. And when we have these conversations, I believe in being, really transparent because, folks, as you listen in, to us, you can look and say, oh, well, they kind of have it all together and blah, blah, blah. And this is teaching moment. No, this is lived moments. And these are things that we've lived through and overcome, but also things that we're navigating consistently as well. And it's so interesting, the point that you made when you talk about issues with, having issues is not about time, but it's about worthiness. My husband and I we obviously live together, and our mother-in-law has been living with us for about a year, and it's been, and she's retired, and so she came because she wanted to spend time with her grandmother, granddaughter, and all that good stuff. And so on the surface, it's like, that's great. Now I can have someone who can help around the house and, help to cook and help to clean and help to support, my daughter and blah, blah, blah. And again, it's great. I didn't grow up with, a village. We were only child, a military kid. We lived around the world and stuff. So there wasn't this like village and all that kind of that whole construct.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand the concept of having a village and just being able to pick up the phone and be like, hey, can you do X, Y, Z? So now I have this resource here, and she's my mother-in-law. I love her, but she's a resource, she's a resource. And I found it so difficult to manage that resource to get stuff done. Like there are things that needed to get done, whether it was laundry for the kid or, preparing for dinner or mopping the floor, or, whatever needed to be done. And she's more than willing to do it. Like that's the thing that's her jam. Like she loves to do that. And I found it so difficult to ask, can you do X, Y, like to just direct, like this is what needs to happen, as I would direct a project in my business or whatever. And so there's times where there's still stuff that needs to get done and it's weighing on me. And here's this resource that I'm like, I don't want to bother her. Why? Because I don't want her to think that her son is married to this lazy wife who won't take care of him or won't do her part or, whatever. And so, and she's old school. So she is the work from sun up to sundown. Doesn't matter if I'm in pain, got one leg, I'm just going to do the thing. And so the thought of me like sitting down and having a Cleopatra moment, I'm uncomfortable in my own house because I'm like, she's still the Energizer Bunny running around cleaning up everything. And I've got, not to mention, all the brain work that goes into creating your work and your business and your clients and all. That's a different kind of work, right? But once that work is done, to be able to sit in my own home and say, I'm going in the backyard and I'm just going to bask in the sunshine at 2 in the afternoon, I have all this judgment around that. And so the time that could be created of just free time, not even time that's, oh, now this is time to go do something else. This is free time to do nothing and to recharge and to rejuvenate. I found it so difficult to do that. And it wasn't because she was unwilling. It wasn't because she had judgments. It's because I had judgments. And so for some of you listening in, there could very well, you think about, oh, I don't have time, I have kids, I don't have support. Actually, you probably do. You probably have friends, you probably have auntie, you probably have extended family, you probably have folks who are willing to free you for a time, take the kid on a play date, do whatever. And you've got to ask yourself, why have I not taken advantage of that? What do I say to myself in those moments? What stories do I tell? What narratives have I created around why this is not a possibility for me? And so I share that vulnerably because it's something I'm navigating through even now, because it's real. And it has nothing to do with anybody else but how I view me and how I view the value that I bring to the table and how I view the importance of me being at my best, energetically and otherwise, and why that is more valuable to the family than the next, deal that I'm going to close. Does that make sense? So I just need to put that soapbox out there so people can understand that there's all kinds of dynamics there, but it's critical in being able to make shifts.
Yeah, we want to be liked. We don't want anyone to think poorly of us. Do you think men have that same issue to the degree we do as women? No. We also think we can do it better, and we might be able to do it better. That doesn't mean we should be doing it, right? And it's funny you bring this up because I have an amazing VA. I could throw her anything with very little details and she will figure it out. And when things are quiet on my end, and just this week, she sent me a text and an email. She's like, you need help with anything? Right. And it's just that reminder, like, what can I do? And I look at my plate and I'm like, there are all these things that don't need to be done by me that can absolutely be done by her. But it's not even that I'm always afraid to ask for support. And that's absolutely a thing.
Yeah.
But we don't even think to.
Yeah.
And so I think, we have to train ourselves to do that. Right. We have to realize that by allowing, right, others to help us, it's in their pleasure. I mean, think how good you feel, right, when you help out a friend. Right. And it can almost, when we try to do it all ourselves and we're afraid, right, what someone's going to think of us, right? Are they going to think I'm not enough? Meanwhile, here we are, right, early on a weekend morning having this call for you to even be.
It's 8:00, y'all, on Saturday.
Exactly.
That's because we love you, but it's 8:00 on Saturday.
Yeah, but the point is, right, literally you're working on a Saturday morning very early, and yet still there's that voice of, am I not doing enough? Should I be doing more? What will she think of me? Right? I mean, it's crazy. Right. And so this is like hardwired in our brain. And so it takes time, right? We can't just listen to one thing and then change the habit like that. And this is what I mean when I say it's nervous system. We need to, slowly expand and learn to ask for help and make it a pattern and have those reminders. Have your VA, right, say, what can I help you with? What can I take off your plate?
Yeah.
Until you get into that pattern of being able to do that for yourself.
Yeah. I do. I like what you say about putting it out there. So if this is something that you really struggle with, tell the people who are your support system, like, hey, can you ask me about X? Can you remind me about Y? Just check in with me every now and again and ask me if I need, because if it's something that you're not good at, instead of willpowering your way through it, get the support systems, the checkpoints that you need to then be able to work that out until it becomes more habitual, and until it becomes something that you value as a habit and a strategy versus something that you have some resistance to. But that's a quick little strategy to be able to make some shifts around.
Yeah, you can literally look at your to-do list and have like a thing that says you have your whole to-do list, and then what doesn't need to be done by me? And then go through it again. And what can I delegate? And you bring up a good point, right? The person I'm telling you about, she didn't just do this. I told her, hey, I'm terrible at delegating. If I go quiet, reach out. So she had full permission to do that. And I'm glad. So anyway, continue.
Perfect. So let's talk about that. So how can women, so we've talked about the problem, and I am sure there's lots of people who are listening like, yep, that's me. Got it, don't know how to fix it. So how can you begin to own your worth and set a new normal, a new way of being? And this, again, guys, this is not meant to transform your life in 5 minutes. It's meant to create an awareness. And once we become aware of things, then all kinds of other resources, you'll be surprised. There'll be a book that'll pop up, a podcast that'll pop up. You'll have a conversation with a girlfriend, a mentor. So it's going to get reinforced, but our job here is really to just uncover and scratch the itch and figure out, is this a thing for me that I need to be able to journey through? But how can women begin to own their worth and set a new normal and a new way of being and valuing ourselves and our gifts and all of that good stuff? Like, where do we even start with that?
Yeah, I think the easiest place to start is even what we're doing today, right? Becoming the observer in your life, right? You're going about your day, you got your inner voice, you're going through your to-do list, and just being the observer and noticing what you're doing and the thoughts going in your head, right? And why you're doing it. And just starting there, that awareness, that alone can start to change things. And then when we see those patterns that come up over and over, committing to do the work to heal them.
Yeah.
Because it's not, like you said, it's not a simple thing. Something that I think is not so good about the world of personal development, right, is we say, we'll just say this mantra, or I'll put it on a vision board, or or I'll do a meditation on, I don't know, on time, right? But all of those, right, they're not getting to the root, to the fears, right? If you are not taking the time for what you say is important to you, what is the reason for that? Is it fear around being seen? Is it fear around taking up too much space? Is it fear around what people will think of you? She has the balls to do that, right? And you're changing that dynamic. And back, we were talking about family, right? And when we do something different than has been done, right, by all the women in our line, right, it can feel like a betrayal. And there can be a very real visceral fear of, if I do something different, not only is it a betrayal, but I'm going to be kicked out of the tribe. Right? Even if your tribe is just, your family of 5 or family of 4. I also had a small family, so I didn't have the tribe either growing up. And so really looking at what are the patterns, what are the beliefs, what are the things that are not serving us, and then going deeper, like, checking out why, like 5 times deep, so that we can see what is the real fear, and what is this putting off what we want to do, what is it protecting us from. And I'll give you a silly example.
Yes.
And this is one of my clients who, she's looking for a new job, and very smart, very accomplished. She's, a opera singer, and she's a head PR person in a really high profile position. And we were going back and forth for weeks on her resume. And finally I said to her, okay, stop. It's not about your resume. What is staying stuck on this one piece of the job search process? How is it benefiting you? And you're probably like, what? How would it benefit me? I'm annoyed. This is annoying, right? And when we really just, and this is another thing, when we're the observer, when we're doing this work, it's unconditional acceptance, right? This is not judging ourselves or finding fault. But when we dug deeper, it's, as long as she was focused on getting her resume perfect, right? She didn't have to do the harder thing of putting herself out there and talking to people, right? That's another thing. Perfectionism is another sneaky time waster, because if we spend our time perfecting, we don't have to do the scary thing of putting it out there. So you're going to do the healing. You're going to commit to that. I definitely recommend working with a therapist or a coach to do this work. It's not like a quick thing, but I can tell you, it's kind of like, you hear these quantum leaps. You're doing the work little by little, and then all of a sudden it hits.
Layers.
Right? Yes. Then the second thing, in addition to doing that inner work, is to start to develop a relationship with yourself. Your typical woman, especially a mom, right? You don't even get to go to the bathroom by yourself. Right? And that means we put ourselves last, and then we don't have that relationship with ourselves, with our inner wisdom, with our inner knowing, with our intuition. right? And everything we have is in here. That's what we mean. But if you are completely disconnected and you don't even know what that voice sounds like, because all you hear is this loud inner critic, you need to be doing this, you're not good enough here, right? We're not able to develop that relationship. And that is the key to figuring out why we're unhappy, what we really want to do, what are the gifts, right? What is our soul here to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you develop that, it's going to be important to start communicating with the people closest to you.
Yeah.
Because you have a certain relationship, you've been doing a certain dance for a while. And when we start doing this work, right, we're changing the dynamics. And it can be scary. It can feel threatening to the people close to us, right?
Yep.
And so having some real honest conversations about what's coming up, what you need, what your desires are, right? Learning to ask for support. And then it's not just about doing all this work in our head and having conversations, but actually making sure that our actions match our words.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Even if it's a little, I grew up in a male dominated industry, work wise. I've always been just naturally, very strong in my masculine action, do, plan, strategy, right?
Yeah.
My last 5 or 10 years have been actually going towards the feminine and adding that in, right? But something that I've learned that can be really helpful is that we don't always need to go the hustle push 0 to 100, but to actually titrate. And if we have any chemistry, science people here, you'll remember, right? One way, right? If I'm filling this mug, right, with water, or titrate, dropper by dropper. And so when I say that with any pattern you're trying to unravel or any goal you're trying to accomplish, sometimes when we go to 0 to 100, we shock our system.
Exactly.
And then we have to hide or rest for a month or two, right? I see that in job search. I see that in my clients building businesses. And so this concept of titrating just a little bit out. So it doesn't mean that you're going to go from no time to yourself to you're going to do an hour morning practice, 2 hours a week building your business, or 2 hours a day building your business. It might simply be, I'm going to start with 5 minutes a day with quiet time, 3 minutes meditation and 2 minutes journaling, right? Starting small and allowing your nervous system, your unconscious to kind of catch up with the work you're doing up here.
Yeah. There are so many gems that Kristen dropped just in that moment. And it's interesting because we're a lot more alike than I even realized. I'm an engineer by training. So I come from a very masculine space as well. And I had to grow in, and being the military kid and the only child, and my parents were teenage parents, and we kind of grew up together. So there was a lot of growth that had to happen in the feminine space, and that didn't start into my 30s. And so it was definitely a different mode of living. But there's a couple things that you said that I wanted to punctuate for folks that are listening, and this idea of tuning into yourself. Not so much about what you think about something, because your thoughts will drive you all sorts of places. But how do I feel about this? Like literally every morning I wake up, I'm like, how do I feel? How do I feel physically? Like what's in my body? Like there's, especially if you've got lots of stress in your life, your body will say it to you, like the pains that you feel in just the silent moments. Like that's not natural. It may be normal, but it's not natural, right? And so really type, how do I feel? Am I happy? Am I sad? Am I anxious? Am I excited? Am I bored? Am I dreading the day? Like without judgment. And I think that's the hardest part, because we have all these ways of how we think we should feel, right? And I should be grateful. I should be like, no, all that to the side. How do I really feel about this? Do I feel loved? Do I feel excited? Do I feel abandoned? Do I feel whatever? Just so that you're aware of what's going on, because then based on how your feelings have a lot to do with the journey. It's not just about achieving the goal. It's not just about, did I get the job? Did I get the VP promotion? Did the business launch? Did the product, get out on time? It's not about that. It's about how am I experiencing the journey of contributing to the world, right? Through my gifts. That's really, really important. Kristen talked about, communicating with people. And I would offer communicating with people who are safe, because sometimes the people who are safe are not necessarily the ones that are close to you. And I think that's a lesson to learn early on, Sometimes it's not your spouse. Sometimes, sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not your mom or your best friend. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's the stranger, the person that you're acquainted to. Y'all don't kick it that much, but whenever you have a conversation, it's a vibe. It's, you get good advice, you get input. That might be your safe space, and creating those places to actually start to have some of these conversations around worth, time, value, what you need, so on and so forth. And then the last point that I loved, I kind of couched it around as lowering your standards a little bit, but as high achievers, we can be all or nothing. Like, you listen to Kristen, she gives you all this good advice, and now you have 15 things that you're off to the races that you intend to do at level 10. And then as soon as you face plant on the second one, then everything is out the window, right? And so the progress gets stymied. And for high achievers, we make progress, but a lot of times it looks like this. It doesn't look like this. It doesn't feel, it's all over the place. And part of it, it's the fits and starts that come with, I'm good at this, I'm not good at that, like all of that. And so really, if you had 5 minutes of quiet time or 5 minutes that you dedicated to, building out, the project or the business or the dream or the goal or the whatever, that's a win. If you can do 5 minutes consistently, but an hour today and then nothing for the next 2 weeks, that's not going to get you anywhere. And so as she's talking about some of these things, I just wanted to punctuate them because they're really gems and they're really gold. But lastly, I want to kind of talk about something that you started to allude to a little bit, but it's this idea of identity. And I think for a lot of women, a big stranglehold is their identity. And when our identities are so closely aligned to what we do in the marketplace. So our identity, who we are, is closely aligned to what our title is, or how much, what our salary is, or how much revenue our business is generating, or whatever else the metric happens to be. I personally see that with the clients I work with. I've seen it in my own life. Like, it obliterates time. It obliterates the ability to focus. It obliterates the space to really get out there and do really, really meaningful work. Do you see that happening? And what's kind of your perspective around that?
Yeah, I mean, I see that a lot, especially right with high achievers, right? We are our work, we are our business. And the problem with that, right, when we make it part of our identity, is it's very constraining, right? On one hand, if we are our business and we're giving everything to it, or our career, in my 20s, my career was 80% of my life,
Yeah.
probably more if I'm honest. And when we do that, right, we're putting all the pressure on the job or the business to give us everything we need, right? Because a job or a business, that is a relationship, just
Yeah.
like romantic relationship and friendship. And so it's putting all the pressure on, this job needs to make me feel loved and safe and seen and appreciated. And all of that is great. And I want you to feel that way in all areas of life. But
Yeah.
we can't expect, just like we can't expect to get all our needs met, right, by one friend, right?
Yeah.
We can't expect that or put that pressure on the job. So many times, when I start working with clients, one of the things I tell them to do is to get a life.
Yeah.
And immediately, right, that's taking the pressure off the job to be everything and do everything for you that you need. So that is one piece of it. In addition to that, when we get stuck in our identity as a job, right, we don't get to take all the other parts of ourselves, right? And in order to really make the impact that only you can make, right? Because we all come here with different experiences, different perspectives, right? Different opinions. We all have something unique to offer that no one else can. But as long as we are putting ourselves in a box, right? For centuries, we've been put in the box.
Yep.
And now we as women, we are internalizing all this and we're doing it to ourselves, right? We talk about the patriarchy. And then at home, we're still subservient, right, to everyone else but us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of that changing, right, starts with how you act and who you be at home. But I digress. What I was saying
Told
was,
y'all she had some fire in her belly about that, right?
I can't help it once I get worked up. But, really thinking about bringing your whole self to your work. And as long as you're stuck in an identity, it's almost like putting on a mask, right? And you said you started in engineering, I was in finance, and there was a certain way that I learned that I needed to be successful. And I never went to the extreme, but I remember having, colleagues that I started with, very few women, but those that I started with, were over the years, I watched them kind of turn into men.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, not just with the way they act, but even down to the way they dressed and their haircut. Right? And so when we do that, we miss out on all our uniqueness, all the things that make us special, and
Yeah.
make it so that, yes, we're differentiating and we're uncopyable, right? All the things we're worried about when it comes to confidence, right? And so as long as we are putting ourselves in a box, we're not bringing our full selves to the table, which means we can't make the impact that we are here to make.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. Because here's the deal, right? This whole conversation is about creating your perfect work. And, perfect work is not to be obviously confused with perfectionism. There's challenges and all of that but perfect work is doing the work that you were born to do. What's interesting though about perfect work is that even though it's so natural to who you are and all of your personality, your talents, your desires, all of that, oftentimes to get there, to cultivate it, it's a journey and it's not easy. And it's a journey of mastery, right? And for a lot of women, particularly when they're making radical career shifts, and I know you see that these with your clients as well, there's this insecurity that comes that I'm great over here. I know I've done awesome things over here, but there's always this question, can I do it over here? Can I do it in this industry? Can I do it with this business? I've been in corporate forever. I don't know if I, can, or client's going to want me. I've had clients who made $400,000 in their job a year annually, and then would come out and have a hard time charging, for clients, right? And so, but the challenge is that if you are your revenue, if you are your last title, then when you get into the void, which we actually talked about in one of the other conversations, when you get into that in-between space between the idea and the actual realization of that dream, there's some dark places that happen there. And you don't have the title to always rely on. You might not be making the revenue the first year of your business, even though it's an amazing business, it's an amazing idea. The money's not there. It's not supposed to be there because that's not even though you see the marketer say, I made $250,000 in 6 months. They didn't tell you it took them 11 years to get the skill to do $250,000 in 6 months, right?
And they didn't tell you that they paid themselves $30,000 because of all the expenses to make that revenue.
That's right. But the problem is that in those moments, you start to then doubt and question, and then the work becomes inconsistent, and you're not in the game for mastery. You're not willing to do it badly until you can do it well, because identity is so tied to all these other things. And so the thing that you were born to do, you will not do. You'll end up literally going back to the maybe 6-figure job that you have that you hate, or wherever the comfort zone is, because the identity gets protected over there. Whereas in order to get what you want, you've got to be willing to strip that out. I mean, I think it's beautiful that I'm even having the conversation with Kristen. Kristen and I do very similar work. And yet there is a uniqueness that she brings to the market that her perfect customer is going to want her and choose her all day long. There's a uniqueness that I bring to the market that my ideal customer is going to want me and choose me all day long. And the only way we can be in the same room virtually and speak to you from a unified place is having the security that I've got great work to do in the world, and I'm all about doing the great work for who I'm supposed to do it. And I will lift her up and edify her. And I think everybody should get job joy. And I firmly believe that and I want to play in the same sandbox with her all day long because there's so much value there. But there's a security that comes from my identity is not tied to the next deal. My identity is about the purpose. And in the purpose of this interview series is helping people with time, space, and focus. And I'm like, we're the best people that can do that. And let's come and let's do some great work together. I can't say I was that way 8 years ago. Like that probably we might not have been in the same conversation. I'm just being very honest about that. Right. And so we have this conversation because these are the things that will steal the what you need to make the thing happen, right? It's not about like, yeah, you know how to network, but you're not going to network with somebody that you feel intimidated by or that you feel threatened by, even though that's the exact or jealous of. And that's the person that you need to be in the room with to get this big dream done, right? So the things that we're talking about here are so critical. I'm so delighted that you were able to bring this conversation to bear. So let's talk about, because I want to make sure, I want to make sure that people are able to follow and stay connected to Kristen and her work, but we also believe in a spirit of generosity. So we're giving free stuff for folks to be able to do that. So let's talk about the free gift, Kristen, that you're offering, and then how people can stay connected with you beyond that space.
Amazing. So the free gift is a training to help you with your personal branding, whether you are in a corporate role, whether you're a business owner, and specifically to start by doing that through LinkedIn. So the free gift, it's 10 LinkedIn tips to make to really get yourself ready for the job or to set yourself up in your business. And while it's about LinkedIn, it's really about owning your worth, about highlighting your value, about highlighting your strengths and the things you want to do, and de-emphasizing that which you don't want to do, right? This is personal branding is one of my favorite tools to change careers, to launch a business, whatever it is. So that is the gift. I would love for everybody to get that, update your personal brand. It's also going to help you with even how you speak about yourself. And then, of course, you can find me on social media. I'm at Kristen Zavo pretty much everywhere except TikTok, where I'm at Find Your Job Joy. I'd love to join us, follow me, make a comment, like send me a message so I can follow you back. And then, of course, at findyourjobjoy.com.
Perfect. So somewhere on the page here, we don't know if it's on the bottom right, somewhere on the page, see a link to her LinkedIn gift. Put your name, put your email in there, follow her, learn from her, grow from her. And so with that said, Kristen, it's been such a refreshing conversation, and I'm so grateful that you've been a part of that. And so I want to thank you, and I think on behalf of Kristen as well, we just wish you every success and every happiness, and we will see you guys on the other side. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.